Vasudevasutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatpurim. Karmanye Vadhikaraste Ma Phaleshu Kadachana Ma Karma Phala Heturbhuhu Mate Sangos Twakarmani. Śiva Saṅkalpa that we have with us at Atharva Forum, Professor Singanapalli Balaram, one of the senior most design thinkers of modern India, and he is here to share his reflections on the search of Indian traditions of design. And here we have somebody more than 6 decades about thinking in design. Professor Balaram, welcome. I would like to start with the question on what would be the appropriate term for design in our own languages. Because when I looked at the National Institute of Design website, the Hindi version of it, it says it is Rashtriya Design Institute. Is it that we don't have an appropriate word for design in our own languages, which is popularized, or is it there in the minds of the people who are into design? Could you please share your thoughts on this before we continue and explore the search for the Indian traditions of design?
I thank you, Atharva Forum, for inviting me for this platform, and for all of you who are listening to me. Because this is a subject which has not been dealt with by many forums earlier. To answer your question, the word design, the equivalent in Indian languages doesn't exist. Before the National Institute of Design started, we have deliberated in the beginning a lot about the word. And we could not find a good translation. You see, the translation, if you force a translation like translating a signal as Dhumashakata Agama Agamana Nirdesha Suchika, it looks very ugly as well as vulgar. So therefore, we decided not to use that word, the founders, and stick to some words don't have equivalent, because the language always is based on their socio-cultural aspects of it. Similarly, in a different culture, sometimes we don't have the equivalents, exact equivalents. So therefore, we decided to keep the National Design Institute to be translated as a Rashtriya Design Sansthan. So design remained as design. Yes, I would also say, it's not that, what is that equivalent I talked about? The equivalent, we have an equivalent, which the great people like Rabindranath Tagore, the Nobel laureate, have dealt with, and because he's a poet himself, he dealt with it very well.
Right.
They also, in fact, many people may not know that he started in 1919, much before National Institute of Design has started. In Shantiniketan, he started Vishwabharati, where he started a design school. And there, the name he has used is, you see, very close to design, 2 words will come. These are Kala, which is a broad general word for art, and Shilpa, which is a broad general word for anything 3-dimensional. Kala normally doesn't go into that. So Rabindranath Tagore started Kala Bhavana separately for fine arts, and Shilpa Sadhana to deal with craft design. That's not industrial design, because industrial design he didn't want to have for various reasons. So the words are Kala and Shilpa.
Let me, for the sake of, say, extending this imagination on what would be the words for design in our own languages. And since you mentioned industrial design was not in the conception or, say, in the thought of Rabindranath Tagore at Vishwabharati, would you see the word Nirmanatmakata as anything suitable, in the sense that the design and the ideation of building something, they seem to go hand in hand. Am I right in saying so? If we are, say, adopting or adapting this sense of the design, which developed into a certain discipline itself in the world, which we are trying to see and bring it into the modern Indian context. In fact, the India report being written in that context. And I've actually tried to also glance through some of your writings, the book Thinking Design being one. And it appears to me that there's a great degree of reflection that you have done on the Mahatma Gandhi's approach to trying to see how we can look at the kind of ways by which we can look at modern Western civilization. So there's one quote that I indeed want to bring to your attention, which is a rather famous quote. I want the culture of all lands to be blown about by my house as freely as possible, but I refuse to be blown off my feet by any. I refuse to be living in other people's houses as an interloper, a beggar, or a slave. So, given this kind of, say, a certain kind of assertion that Mahatma Gandhi tried to make, what is your assessment or say the kind of effort which has gone in to try and say, make this sense of design Indian? And what is the sense of the Indian, the content of this Indian that, say, is provided in the process?
This is a very important question. And let me also, before that, confess, I believe I am one of those people who believe that every person should have an ideal. Nowadays, I don't know whether it makes sense, but to me, it makes a great sense. I have two ideals. One is Rabindranath Tagore, I mentioned already. The other one is the great M.K. Gandhi.
Okay.
And this has been the quote you have, I don't know how you picked up, but that has been my favorite quote of him. And I keep telling me and to my design students and my design colleagues this quote because it is a good warning. So this quote says that whatever you do, you on one hand, it says that you should open all your windows of the world so that you get all the lights from there. But at the same time, it says this great caution. It ends with, I refuse to be blown off my feet. So there's a wonderful thing because what happens is, I will tell you historically, when NID started, I was one of those people who are the kind of the first batch of teachers who are trained. We are trained, but at that time there are no teachers, so they have to get people from America, Germany, Japan, England, from various places. That's the only way left. So we fortunately, with Ford Foundation support, we have got luminaries of that time: Charles Eames, Bob Gill. These are famous, world famous designers. Eddie and Frutiger, who is a famous typographer, and Karthia Bresson. So you name it, all those names appear in any history book on design history book. These people, we are fortunate enough to get trained by them. They're all from foreign lands. But they were teaching us, we have learned from them. And not only that, afterwards, some of us selected ones were sent to great schools abroad, Royal College of Art. I was sent to Royal College of Art. I'm one of those fortunate ones. Some people were sent to Germany, a great college there, Ulm, and some people were sent like that. They've sent all over the Europe and even Japan. But so naturally people will assume that when we come back, we will do the German design, English design, and any European design in our dealings. But that's a wrong assumption. There is one in one of my TED talk in Hyderabad in 2011. I mentioned this. If you see that, you will know. There is one episode, one anecdote I give when Professor Bob Gill, who is a famous graphic designer from Royal College of Art, London, when he had come to India, to work on. At that time, family planning is our concern. And we were doing a number of projects with him in family planning. And first time when he came, we showed around, all of us young, enthusiastic teachers getting trained. And afterwards, we asked him, NID building is a very modern, post-modern kind of wonderful building. And we asked for his appreciation of it.
Okay.
He said in his own typical British understatement criticism, he said, oh yes, if I'm blindfolded in London at Royal College of Art and brought by helicopter and dropped in this building, I would have not known the building. I would have not known the difference. So we thought whether to take it as appreciation or it's a critic. Then he broke the dilemma and said, aren't you ashamed of it? That is a slap on our face. He said, it's a great building, but are you trying to imitate? Never do that. Have your own face, however bad it is. However, you believe in your own face. So that drilled in my head, I'm telling it after nearly 60 years of this incident, because it is a kind of guiding, one of those guiding lights like Gandhi's, that quote which you have mentioned. Some of these are our lighthouse. Like the ships, you have the lighthouse. I keep remembering and transferring to wherever I talk or wherever I teach. So these are important for us to remember. So NID building, although it is kind of made, we remember now in all my, if you see all my designs I have designed, this reflect this attempt to kind of bring Indianness, but not self-conscious. There is that danger. You should not self-conscious about it and then try to put, like I'm very critical of, you just put a red bindu everywhere now in whatever you do and say it is Indian. This is a kind of lip service. It is superfluous. It shouldn't be superfluous. If you are true to yourself, you will be good. I don't have to make my face look Indian by putting a bindi. If I am Indian, my core values are Indian. If I use my own natural resources and I speak my own accent, I don't have to try to be Indian. I am Indian. A Keralite speaking English is different from a Andhraite speaking English or a Punjabi speaking English. Then he is speaking English, but it's a Keralite English. See, your mother tongue or your mother culture will automatically appear in whatever you do. So why you have to self-consciously put in? That shows only your insecurity, nothing else. So this kind of put on Indianness, I don't believe. So we tried from then onwards. Of course, this consciousness should be there. This danger constantly, it should warn you not to be, are you kind of trying to be influenced by, but we haven't. So that's what many of our designers who have tried, including myself, we have not kind of gone into the trap of, because we are trained under great people from the West and because we are trained under the great schools in the West, our designs are not Western. Yeah.
So I in that quote, there is also a reference to I refuse to be an interloper, beggar, or slave also.
Yes.
Now,
Very strong.
as in say, when you actually mention getting trained by the Western legends and then trying to adapt it. So in the process, say, how would you, I mean, with your experience, how would you avoid to be an interloper or a beggar or a slave? As in say, could you say broadly say, give a direction? What would be your thumb rule, let's say, to try and not be those?
That's very simple. You be yourself. You don't try to use glass or Italian marble if you are designing a house for India. You're conscious about it. You conscious about your material. Bamboo doesn't grow in London. So I use bamboo. I have designed bamboo duster. Like that, we are very beautiful potters here. You use pottery here in India. Your material, your people's skills, if you use it automatically, it will become Indian. This is what I'm saying. So you are this Gandhi's Gandhi's caution about interloper or beggar. We are not asking for something, but learning from some great people who knew themselves that the importance of your being yourself, or what we call identity, is that they're all. Charles Eames himself said in his report not to do that, and Bob Gill himself said that don't be don't be a slave to what London is. So these are above their their influence, and they're constantly warning us, and we constantly warn whenever we teach. So that's why we maintain it.
Since you also mentioned Charles Eames once again, let me, I did not want to read out the foreword from the Eames report in the beginning. I just want to read out the foreword because that actually is very relevant. You have the right to work, but for the work's sake only. You have no right to the fruits of work. Desire for the fruits of work must never be your motive in working. Never give way to laziness either. So, karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturpuhu mate sangostva karmani has been thus translated. Interestingly, in the subsequent four statements made in the foreword, there is a reference to Samatvam Yoga Uchyate from the Gita, which has been thus translated: perform every action with your heart fixed on the Supreme Lord, renounce attachment to the fruits, be even-tempered in success and failures, for it is this evenness of temper which is meant by yoga. There's also a reference: seek refuge in the knowledge of Brahman. Esha Brahmi Stitwa. This is a reference from the subsequent shlokas after Karmanyevadhikaraste. And there is also, say, Kripanaha Phalahetavaha. They who work selfishly for results are miserable. Thus ends the foreword of Charles and Ray Eames' India report. Now, this is a very powerful kind of exhortation, Bhagavad Gita itself. Could you please throw some light on, say, what has been the kind of impact of this kind of exhortation that went into the design education or even in the making of the design in India in the past 6 to 7 decades?
I'm glad you mentioned this. You see, many people have not noticed it, but there is something unique about when India report was written way back in 1958. When the government of India, in its vision of development, rightly recognized design as a very important tool, and it's going to be a future tool. So they invited, instead of going ahead with any kind of Tom, Dick, and Harry or any, they have rightly located one person who is above, considered as the designer of the 21st century, Charles Eames. Charles Eames has been asked to come to India to suggest what kind of design institute we should have in this country. And he rightly said, I will come, myself and my wife is also designer. We both will come. Since we don't know anything about India, let us first know India. See, in exactly the same way Mahatma Gandhi did before he involved himself into freedom struggle. It's a very interesting parallel. He toured around India, but this time he went to the craft centers in India: Hyderabad, Moradabad, Ahmedabad, Jaipur, and so on. He talked to the design people. At that time, crafts designer. We only have craftsmen. We don't have modern design. So he talked to them, and after that, he had come up with this report, which is surprisingly small. The total report is only 20 pages. Government is expecting, after his so much of visit and so much of set, he would come with a huge kind of thick book report. He didn't. And the foreword is even puzzling. When I read foreword, I said, what? Because I was young and I didn't know much about it. He simply said the Karmanya Vyadhikarasya Shloka, and that's it, not a single word mentioned. That's it. And said, this is the foreword. Foreword is the title, and the shloka is the content. That's it, over. And it is surprisingly 20-page report. In that one page, forward is for this, and later on we will come to, there is another thing he has mentioned, which is interesting, which has a bearing on what you are asking for. That is, there are 2 pages dedicated in this 20-page report for something called Lota. Lota is what we all call Chambu in Telugu and Kalash in Sanskrit and all that. And we have many different kinds of lotas and all that. But why Charles Eames has to mention a shloka from Bhagavad Gita as foreword, and why he has to show Lota as a ultimate symbol of Indian design? You see, in his own typical understatement, he didn't mention much about it. He said how it fits into the hip of the woman when it is carried, how it fits into your hand, how it sounds, how it kind of a curvilineous shape, how it shines when it is, polished. And all this is sensorial aspects of aesthetics. He mentions it. And in the end, the report concludes saying that Indian designers should produce. And this is the motto for the design education in this country. And he's saying that the National Institute of Design should produce the many lotas of our times. These 2 words are important. Production of lotas, what he means is it's a metaphor, no? Production of lotas of our times means you make lotas, means not foreign products. You don't make pressure cookers or you don't make vacuum cleaners or something like that. He said lotas, which are needed for your own. But Lota is of course ancient. He said production of the modern, your times. So you have to make lotas, means the Indian type products for Indian people's needs to suit, but not the earlier, but today's needs. These 2 words are very, very important for us. And we have to interpret. He has left that to the Indians to interpret. He didn't say anything about your building should be like this. This needs so much of cost, budgets, finances. He didn't go into any of them. He very wisely, now I feel it's very wise of him not to mention all of it, how big, how many square feet of land. That's what we normally do when you make a report for somebody. You first go into all the physical things like land and furniture and this and that, which is stupid. I'm sorry for that word, but it doesn't make any sense at all. But here, Charles Eames, being what he is, he refused to do that. He said, you can work out that anybody can work out. Any donkey can work out those kind of things. But the philosophy which is the core of that institute, which he laid down in his report, whether the ministry understood or not, I have no idea. These Eames couple have been called to India to help. The intent is that to help at that time, Jawaharlal Nehru, in his developmental plans, now we have got something for industrialization of the country. But what about design and what about small and medium scale industries and the cottage industries and craft industries? These ones have left down, and rightly he recognized that. And Charles Eames and Ray Eames have been called to this country to help that area. And it's in this context he picked up Lota and not any other product. There are many other products also. But he took up this simple Lota and praised it, saying that this is where your direction should be. How the Indians have interpreted it, whether they have rightly interpreted or not, that is a different question. I think we have not interpreted it properly. In my own criticism of my own profession, we have not interpreted it properly. That we will come when we discuss wounded civilization. India wounded civilization. But I think the intent must be very clear that he wanted and the report wanted the Indian products using Indian materials, Indian resources, Indian psychological needs of the Indians are important for him. So this is what the direction he has set down in his India report.
If I go back to the shlokas that he has picked and the definition of yoga in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he has picked samatvam yoga uchyate, whereas say there is also the more famous usage of yoga karma kaushalam. He didn't pick that shloka, though it is actually say part of the same adhyaya, right following the karmanya vadhikaraste shloka. So samatvam yoga uchyate has been picked, but not yoga karmasu kaushalam. So I felt say this choice also was very insightful in the sense that a person who is actually approaching the design, he should not possibly say be talking about it the post facto say realization that it is karmasu kaushalam. Very, very say significant in terms of the choice also that is made. If say continuing, since we have actually say, started with this Bhagavad Gita reference, one of the key aspects that we notice from Bhagavad Gita is the emphasis on Yajña and the Yajña Bhāvanā throughout the text of Bhagavad Gita in different ways. And there is also the categorical assertion that say Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma Nityam Yajña Pratishtitam, the entire cosmos and Yajña being related is a very key aspect that is found. My question in this light is that if at all we were to understand the sense of Yajña Bhāvanā, because we have a sense where various kulavrittis, the small and medium enterprises that you just referred to, most of those in current times would deal with the kulavrittis of various jatis of our country. And these kulavrittis, they had something substantial about them in the sense that since you're also from the Telugu background, you would know the various songs of Annamacharya, where the kind of relation, because he was related to and he observed Padmashalis, the weaving community very significantly. And the songs of Annamacharya actually refer to the entire cosmos with the kind of descriptions are found in the manner in which the handloom works. So there are say metaphors and the kind of analogies used. They actually mention that. So there is a way in which you notice that everybody who performs their corresponding kulavritti, they have a way by which their dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, the four chaturvidha purusharthas, they can be attained by them. So when this sense is present as a I mean, if I may be allowed to, as a design principle of Indian life, that say the Yajña Bhāvanā as the design principle of every Indian's life, has that kind of a thought been, say, some way or the other incorporated into what we today call as modern design education or modern design enterprise?
Complex question, and the answer also will be complex.
Thank
in
you.
a very general sense, Yajña Bhāvanā, if you say that, I must admit that in design education, that's not there. But in another sense of Yajña Bhāvanā, that yourself immersed in your work and being one with the work, and that sense designers do. Then I will come to the kulavritti, which you mentioned, Annamacharya and other great people. And I would say that Charles Eames very wisely didn't touch that aspect because the caste system is a very deeply entrenched in India, and he doesn't know much about it. Therefore, he didn't touch. Today also many designers don't touch that, although many of them work with crafts people. but they don't get into the caste because they don't know how to deal with it, because they're not equipped. The education system has not equipped them. And the caste system is not so simple. As Rajni Kothari, long time back when I was studying, he told us, and till today that is true. If you want to understand India, you have to understand caste system. And Charles Eames is not capable of it, and he admitted it, and therefore he didn't touch it. Many designers today also don't touch it because they are not capable of it. But is that right or wrong? That is a different matter, because they are not being given that knowledge in their education. Not only in their education, in science education, medical education, in no education, we give that. But that is a strong point. Probably we don't even recognize. Only when you recognize, when you are aware, only you can give that education. So that is another matter altogether. The thing is, caste system, when it is evolved for a good reason and continued for a good reason. Because a caste, suppose you are a Padmashali, you know in and out of the thread, in and out of how to make a three-dimensional product out of the two-dimensional thing, which is a thin thread. And you know the technology, you have grown with the material which grows in your backyard or in your fields. So you know everything about it. And then naturally, the education didn't happen in a school outside. Education real education happened at home. It's not ABCD, learning ABCD or A, I, E, U. It is learning. If I am a Padmashali, I will automatically, from the childhood, my daughter and my son, while seeing me, it will go into their bloodstream, into their DNA. So tomorrow, my daughter will be more capable of doing a sari rather than doing a doctorate or surgery. So it happened. So it happened at that time when the caste system, caste-based professions are there. What is happening now is there is industrial designer society, there is a furniture designer society, but there's not a right way of community. If there is new community has to be formed, that should be based on your profession. All doctors should be at one place because they share the common interests. And the medical profession is actually making that profession, that caste, their caste is made by the college where they're studying. If they studied in a medical college, your caste is decided by the college. My caste is decided by National Institute of Design, where I studied, myself and my wife have studied design. So we are design caste. Should define your kulam, not your kulam defining your Janma Kulam. I mean, Janma Kulam is not the one which should define you. If I'm a Brahmin and I never know the Vedas, and if I never know anything, I'm not actually fit to be called as a Brahmin.
Professor Balaram, if I may interrupt, in the sense that it has been a controversial topic also for many reasons, because in some sense, there seems to be a kind of difficulty in terms of trying to, let's say, come to terms with the kind of changes that our country has faced, specifically the rapidity of the way in which modernity has been embraced or has been forced to be embraced. So there are several kinds of ways in which one can possibly think of. But insofar as I'm a student of Dharma Shastras, so I do understand that there is a very clear assertion made within the Dharma Shastras that somebody who is born a Brahmana, but who does not study Veda, nor is he capable of, say, practicing what are the karmakanda which is actually suggested for a Brahmana, he just becomes a Jati Brahmana. And Jati Brahmana is someone who is certainly considered as, say, the Adhama amongst the Brahmanas. So, and there is a sense in which it's also there that that Brahmana who also is following the karmakanda and also is say as what is actually ordained as per the Shastra, if he is practicing it, then he is the Uttama Brahmana. So this sense is also a certain kind of a faculty which is present in terms of our descriptors that are there for our society. While I also see that what modern education seems to have done is that when I refer to kula as a word, there is the word Gurukula, which actually means Guru Nivasa, the house of the Guru. So kula is actually the family itself. So when I say kula vritti, it is family vritti. And what seems to have happened in modern India is that the family from which I come from, it doesn't matter what family I come from when I go to a school or a university, because they don't ask me, what is your background? I remember I come from engineering background, and I remember many of my professors, they used to say, see, we have several people who are from Lohar community who have in their own families, they deal with metals. They deal with the making of iron and making of varieties of these tools with it. So why don't we actually have a specific kind of, metallurgical engineering students are picked from Lohar community, so that the kind of, learning that they have at home, which is actually, ingrained, as you mentioned, at home, it's drilled into the DNA. You also use this when you refer to the Padmashalis. So when we actually think of modern kind of disciplines of learning, education, engineering, or design, or even medicine, that these people are specifically, drafted into learning these modern approaches. And that could possibly bring about a kind of newer understanding of the modern disciplines itself. And one example that does come to my mind is, again, from Padmashali community, Chintakindi Mallesh, who was recently also awarded Padma Shri, Padmashali community, and he observed his mother and the women of Padmashali community, how difficult it was for them to spend 8 hours in terms of, wounding the thread across a loom, after which the men came into play in terms of, the weaving process. So he tried to, automate it, though he was not formally educated, but he learned engineering, and he also learned, now he has also learned coding, and he has also designed, software, which can actually bring about this activity that used to be done by women at home, how it could be improved in terms of the quality as well as the reduce the time. So this kind of a thing also can be imagined in future, in the sense that the family and the modern education, you try to harmonize the two. One point on Yajña before we move on. I've noticed many definitions of Yajña exist, but one from Kavisamrat Viswanath Satyanarayana did indeed strike me very strongly. He said, to quote him in his own language, he said, Dravyamlo Atma Bhavana Cheyuta Yajña Manduru. So the idea of, invoking the entire cosmos into whatever substance which we are working with, that process is what requires to be understood as Yajña. And in another sense, maybe I could also say that how one actually looks at the samashti in the vyashti. So this sense of, looking at the entire cosmos within, a given the kind of context in which you are working, that process, if we can indeed, be aware of, and with that conscious sense act upon, then possibly, we'll be in line with the Yajña Bhāvanā, is a possible kind of a thought that does come to me. And so when you mention that designers do take the immersion, maybe this immersion, if it was also in the sense that it tries to relate to the entire cosmos, that could certainly mean it is, in line with the Yajña Bhāvanā.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with the great man. Vishwanath Satyanarayana is a great man. I've read many of his books, and I'm glad he said it, coming from such a great man. That is wonderful. That's what I was trying to say. Somebody
of your stature, and that too at your age, I've seen your blog, sbalaram43.blogspot.com, in which, the latest post is around written a couple of years ago, and the last post was called Failure CV. And somebody of your stature, and also who has written so many books and has influenced several students, generations of students, to actually say something like failure CV. And there are many things written in that. But what really struck me was the point on V S Naipaul and how the design, NID reference, which came in the India Wounded Civilization book, how did it strongly impact you? And also say your thoughts on the same, because there are a number of things that can actually come up in that context. So please convey your current understanding of what happened, and how we need to understand how things have progressed and what is the path for future.
I strongly believe one of the enemies within, there is no greater enemy than ahankara, or the ego. Yeah. So like in every profession, everywhere, your insecurity makes you keep on breastbeating yourself. I'm so great, I'm so great, I'm so great. Many times I also asked when I'm introduced somewhere, all the wonderful things told about me. That what happens is that only kind of inflames my ego. That has to be stopped. See, one of the faults which Ravana Brahma has is Ravana is called Brahma. Brahma is ego. So, and it gets into the head of anybody who has got some power. Design is also power. So education is also power, because I'm influencing, I have the power to influence so many young minds. So when it gets into your head, ego is something which is not kind of labeled, and many people don't realize it. Insidiously, it gets into you, and you keep on saying, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great. You keep hearing, I'm great, you are great, you are great, you are great. You get into the psychophancy and all that. So I thought, for a designer, if you want to be a learner, you have to be empty cup. And I believe not only a student is a learner, I'm also a learner. Every human being is a learner. So from that, you should believe you are an empty cup. There is a Zen story which says that somebody goes to him, he wants to learn from the Zen master, and the Zen master smiles and, all right, you can learn. First have some tea from me. And he takes a cup which is full of tea and keeps pouring tea into that. So that man cried, sir, 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 it is all overflowing, it is already full. So the Zen master smiles and says, that is like you, mister. I can't teach you anything. So this is, everybody should remember, not only students, because I'm a student of life forever. We don't many times. Therefore, this is an answer to why I put failure CV. Yesterday, I was at Śiva Saṅkalpa University, one of the institutions of excellence. We were discussing curriculum. One of the points many people mentioned is that failure is important. But nobody, when you ask for a CV, you ask for all the good things you have done, all the achievements you have done, all the awards you have won. But what about your failure? If you have never failed in your life, maybe you have never tried anything worthwhile. That is the underline I always put. So that is about my blog. Now we will come back to the great Nobel laureate Śiva Naipaul. And you asked the right person, me, because I am the one who took Śiva Naipaul around NID when he visited NID in 1995. I remember very clearly, because the wound is still there. And I'm glad about that wound. I'm honestly telling you, I'm not trying to be nice to Śiva Naipaul. I didn't hate him ever. My colleagues do. But we see, if the wound is right, and if it is done, the slap is given at the right time, you should appreciate that man. So from that aspect, I appreciate Mr. Naipaul. But let me explain how it happened. I showed him around, and then he saw these products, particularly farm implements, and he was kind of.
Mhm.
Yeah, he made fun of it and all that. But there is one thing which I say about that. I also happen to be the guide for these two students who worked on the form implements. The only thing is, Mr. Śiva Naipaul had
That he
spent
criticized.
only 10 minutes around that listening to it. He didn't have enough time. He has to catch the flight and all that. So all that I can say about him is his criticism was right, but his hasty conclusion is wrong. And I will tell you what happened was, myself and my two students went to Bardoli, went to a Gandhian called Mohan Parekh there, who is running Krishi Yantra Vidyalaya. He wants to revive all the old techniques of and build, new kind of farm implements. It could be sickle, it could be plow, it could be something else. But we went there under his guidance. We made more than one prototype. We tried in the field. Of course, they're not perfect. To that extent, Naipaul was right. But to make, without knowing much about the context and the background and all the sweat and blood has gone into it, and these young students are trying to do something. The attempt should be praised or criticized, not the result. There, I think he made a mistake, but he has the right to do that. So that way I see it. That is only thing I have to say about it. It is up to him. He didn't know. He didn't encourage the students. Afterwards, maybe nobody will take form implements, because whether we like it or not, all the design institutes exist only, not only design institute, any good institution exists only in city, in urban areas. Which university exists in rural areas, you tell me? Which village has got a university? We don't have. So everybody has to go to urban areas which are alien to them. So this is the problem of our country. And we have more villages
So would you
than
not think that
cities?
Right.
Sorry?
No, would you not think that that say we don't have because I mean I remember say there was a very strong kind of say move by Sri Chukka Ramaya in Hyderabad, who ran a very famous Ramaya Institute. He insisted that Basara, which is on the banks of river Godavari, that there must be an IIT there. So while the IIT campaign went strongly, the opposition was also quite strong. They said that unless and until you have an airport which is close by, the IIT would not have the kind of impact that it can generate. So ultimately, say IIT Hyderabad came up. The Basara, there was another institution called Rajiv Gandhi University of Knowledge Technologies, which is popularly known as IIIT Basara, which came up there, but not the same league as, say, the IIT Hyderabad. But the question that you posed, would you, I mean, this is only a, say, I'm expecting a yes or no kind of a point. Would you think that, say, our imagination of university, which is limiting itself to urban atmospheres, is that a design flaw?
It's a thinking flaw, I should say. And to add to that, it's not that people haven't thought of it. Rabindranath Tagore has established his university long time back in 1913. That long ago, even during the colonial rule, he has got this brains to establish it in a tribal area, which is a village. And his idea is to benefit those tribals. So it's that even today, rural university, the rural university, true, in Javaja village, Ravi Mathai, late Ravi Mathai, the IIM, Professor IIM's first director established. So there are attempts are being made. I'm so happy about it. My hats off to all of them who are doing it. Like I mentioned Vikram Parchure. So these people, the only hope is for this country, those kind of attempts. And but now we are entering into the treacherous area of politics. Let's not do that. Because the politics many times are deciding things. There are individual efforts right from Rabindranath Tagore, right from 1930s, 13s. But the problem, even today, our only hope is that, unfortunately, right thinking is not deciding things, but the politics are deciding. So, unfortunately, that is what is happening, something which we can't do much.
I'm aware of, say, Nanaji Deshmukh ji's Bharat Ratna's Nanaji Deshmukh ji's efforts in terms of this Gramodya Vishwavidyalaya in Chitrakoot region. There aren't many of that kind that one can possibly think of, though, of course, thinking about, say, the villages and so on has certainly been a kind of active engagement that one does find. But before we close on the India wounded civilization, I thought the chapter where the discussion on NID designs happened, it ends with something which I felt was important to be brought to the attention. It actually ended with this sentence: the beauty of the simple life, the beauty of the poor. In India, the ideas are rolled together and appear one, but the ideas are separate and irreconcilable because they assert two opposed civilizations. This is, in some sense, also a critique of what one can call as the Gandhian approach, because in some sense, there are people who probably say a lot more dynamic in terms of what he was doing. But once Gandhi's thought becomes Gandhian, the embrace of poverty, instead of, say, a certain kind of what is to be simple life. This contrast that Sir Naipaul drew, would you like to throw some thoughts on the same?
I tend to agree with Mr. Naipaul to some extent, but disagree to some extent. What he said, these two things you mentioned, the beauty of
the simple life and the beauty of the poor. Beauty of the poor.
They can't be rolled into
one.
What he said is they can't be rolled into one. Certainly that should not be done. But he can't deny the existence of one. We can't say the poor are not beautiful or simple life is not beautiful. Simple life is beautiful, and poor, there is a beauty in poverty. Those who have read the great book, The Meaning in Life, by Viktor Frankl, who suffered the Nazi, he worked in the Nazi camps, etc. He says he's a psychologist. He mentions what is life. In life, suffering is one of the three components which to make meaning. From that way, poverty is also meaning. And everywhere, why Gandhi has to suffer poverty? He has got enough his own money and all that. He is son of a Diwan. Why Rabindranath Tagore has to suffer poverty? Because there is something good in that, and the beauty lies in that good. And we don't separate good and beauty. Good is beauty, beauty is good. That is the Indian way of looking at it. So Naipaul ji, he said that they can't be rolled into one. Yeah, the simple life is simple life, and that you can choose like Gandhi has chosen, or I have chosen, or somebody else has chosen. And poverty is something which comes to you. You don't choose it unless you are a great man. Some great people have, like Socrates, etc., have chosen it, but the existence, denying the existence is not right. That is where I differ with Naipaul ji.
Okay. So I mean, in the kind of point that you made, I'm reminded of what Kunti asked of Lord Krishna. She said, may we suffer more, because that would mean that we'd always be remembering you again and again. So there is this sense also present. So that sense of embrace of poverty is with an idea of what we generally refer to in our civilization as the aspiration for Paraloka. I mean, whether or not
we have example, Bhakta Potana has refused the kings, being given him wealth. So
Right.
there are many examples we have.
Yeah,
So
Tyagaraja
right,
being one
Tyagaraja
another.
also.
Right.
Yes.
So let me continue with the question that say started with the rural university notion, which say in the sense that education is not keeping the rural atmosphere and the kind of rural conditions in mind. So I happen to be greatly influenced and also say learned a lot from Guruji Ravindra Sharma of Kala Ashram in Adilabad. So he used to tell us some very interesting kind of anecdotes and also gave certain kind of thumb rules. So he mentioned that many students who come from these elite institutions in the country, elite institutions could be NID, NIFT, or even it could be say IITs or the medical schools that are there. When they come to a rural area, they have a question to the people of the hinterland. And the question is about, say, what do you want? So, Guruji Ravindra Sharma used to say that's a very wrong question to ask. If you are desirous of helping these people, you should ask them, what can you do? With whatever you have, what is it that you can do? So, when that question is actually answered by them, so if you ask them, say, what can you do? Then they'll tell you, say, I can do this, I can do that. And they might give a huge list of things. And once you are aware of those things that they can do, then what is it that is causing hindrance to that? So if you can actually see whether the modern kind of conditions pose hindrance to that kind of thing that they can do, please, if you, with your intervention and with your efforts, if you can remove it, then you are actually strengthening them rather than say ending up asking them a question, what do you want? So that question puts them into a daze, and they might as well answer the same points that say the urban people would like to know of. So if you want to have a good road, or you want to have a say electricity, you want to have the comforts of the urban areas in the rural life. So these are all the kind of questions about say when the question is what do you want? So your thoughts on the same, sir?
Yeah, I am an admirer of Guruji. And let me emphasize, Guruji is like that. Why? Because he is staying in a village. If Guruji was a professor
Right.
in some elite university, he will also produce elite people. And who are these elite people? These elite people are actually, many of them have come from village, like I have done. But they are afterwards converted, made into elite. Because I earlier mentioned, the universities are all located in urban areas, and you are forced to accept urban lifestyle. Initially, I also have, when I went to NID and Ahmedabad, such a big city capital, I have this problem of belonging to a group. And I'm kind of, very eager to belong to that group. Otherwise, I will be outcasted in another way. So, of course, I resisted the temptation of going to drugs. So many people go into the trap of going to drugs and going to drinks and going to guitar lessons and English songs and all that. And we also suffer. I'm not a convent educated man. So my English was poor, and the others are speaking fluent English, and it's the English medium college. So all these things will ultimately force me to become like that. I have resisted because I've realized I have strong roots, whatever are the reasons, my grounding and my whatever it is. But how many people like that resist? How many people like Guruji will stay in villages? The one reason is that the location of the universities. The other one is the people who are going there and teaching there, not Gurujis. They're all people they're also urban trained. Because you put also the qualifications and all that, they must have doctorate. Guruji will never be qualified, even if I want to take somebody like Guruji. So this is where this needs a whole rethinking of. We are creating elite schools. Now, if you see international schools primary schools command something like 5 lakhs per year and very high fees rather than the local schools. Because we already made that. So the problem lies there. I 100% agree with Guruji. So, but the problem is that with our education system, total education system, design become a pawn in that. It can't help. The other thing about our students when they go, these are already urban trained. To counter it, what you might ask me as a design teacher of 54 years, what have you done? That also I must answer. I will answer it. I have put into the NID curriculum and everywhere, wherever I go, and I founded 2, 3 design schools. I put this a mandatory thing that the at least 1 month to or at least 2 weeks, the students have to spend in a village. At least they should know the milk doesn't come from the pouch, but it comes from the cow.
Cow.
So many people don't even know. So I mean, it's not, you smile it, but it's not a smiley matter. It's a serious matter, and they all will very seriously tell you the milk comes from. If you ask where the milk comes from, they will say from the milk pouch, Amul, and that's it. So we will force them in this mandatory course in foundation. Every school is not doing. Wherever I go there and I put it, so it works in those schools only. But at least some effort is being made. So the students are forced to not just go and sketch and go and photograph and go and do that. That's ridiculous. I said you go and live with people. So I call it as a living with people course. The living with people course, you go there and put them to live in a family. It is like a stay with, because only by staying and only by this I learned again from Gandhiji. If you give me time, I will tell you about it. I wrote about it, but I must tell you here. What
Please do.
happened was, it really happened in Gandhi's, you can see in Gandhi's history. Gandhiji, it also recently, I wrote 2 years ago, there is a book which is published now, Rethinking Gandhi. In that book, I have written an article about Gandhiji, how he used it, but how his shrewd and very meticulous kind of critical thinking. When when Gandhi was at his prime, at Wardha Ashram he was, Life magazine at that time, the greatest magazine of the world, wanted to do a cover page article on Gandhiji. How can they? They have to do it. How can they not do it? So they have sent this great photographer called Margaret Burkewhite. She went with all the paraphernalia, all the latest cameras and equipment and all that. She went to the ashram and they asked the ashramites staying there straight from New York to Wardha. And she asked, I want to interview Gandhi. So people said, oh, you can interview him. She thought there is no secretary, there is nobody to ask permission, nothing. She was surprised already. And they showed somebody who is sweeping the floor. She had another shock. That man who is sweeping the floor is that great man I'm supposed to put it on life's cover? That is another shock. But anyway, she has to go there. She went and asked Gandhiji, and straight away she introduced herself. Gandhiji kept sweeping the floor and listened to her, yet listened to her. And in the end, he said, no, you can't photograph me. Third shock came to Margaret Burkewhite. She said, he's a madman. Life, the world's top magazine is wanting to make a cover page article on you and you're refusing. He was a stupid man. But she felt like, going bad. And she said, I have come here and wasting my time trying to photograph a stupid man. But she can't do that because life will sack her.
Right.
So she swallowed her pride and asked him, so why I can't photograph you? Gandhiji told her, now we are talking. You have to understand me before you photograph me. But how can I understand you? So then he said, that is a good question. He put the broom in her hands and said, by sweeping. She didn't understand what is sweeping to do with photographing Gandhi. I have got the best equipment, I have got the best qualifications, I have got the best portfolio and all that. Gandhiji insisted, if you want to understand me, do what I do. Even today, Pranav, I tell all my students, if you want to understand something, do it. You go to village and seeing and taking pictures of somebody doing lapan. That is cow dung thing. No? We were alakatam.
Right.
చేస్తారు కదా తెలుగులో. That is,
Right.
the people use it on the floor, on the walls and on the floor to make the dust settle and all that.
Yes.
It is one thing to photograph, one thing to sketch, but another thing to put your hand into the hot shit. It is shit, all said and done. It is a cow shit. It is a shit after all. Put your hand and feel the texture of the shit is another thing. And this feel the smell of it and all that. It is completely another. This is what, that's why Einstein said that the 1 ounce of experience is worth a ton of knowledge. So I force my students to go to the village at least once. You see how they eat and how they sleep and how they know there are no bathrooms and there are no latrines in villages. All my life, I've come from my village. Even today, there are no latrines, totally latrines. Now, today, some people have latrines, but even today, there are no latrines. But people are staying there and staying well.
Right.
So the thing is, it needs a kind of different kind of thinking, your empathy.
I should mention for the sake of our audience that you hail from a village called Gunnatota Valasa in the north coastal Andhra. And that's a village which used to be an agrahara. You also mentioned that irrespective of the non-presence of, say, modern day toilets, people in villages still are living very well. In fact, you made a statement just a while ago. This actually is also a clash of values in the sense, would you value efficiency more, value relationship more, or would you value something else more? So there are, say, a range of values which are actually being clashing in the current circumstance. So how is it that you would actually bring attention to this kind of a thing to your students? Because these are also design values, right?
Yes. The only way I can, you see, as a teacher and as a designer, I have my limits. So what I do whenever I teach, I keep on pushing this. When I write books, I keep on pushing it. I have written a book called Design Values, because that's another thing which I brought out. In education, we teach everything except the most essential thing of values.
Right.
In one of my books called Thinking Design, I question this. Is it, any profession without value doesn't exist. Take, for example, I'm a sharpshooter. So I can shoot very well. But if you ask me to shoot my mother, should I go and shoot it because you are giving me 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs? A value should be there, no? I should know whom I am killing, why I am killing.
Right.
Yeah, I can't be just because I'm getting some money. I mean, I don't care, who dies and who doesn't die. That can't be, no? Any profession doesn't go without the professional values. The sad thing is no school teaches us values. In the old system, and I'm fortunate to study Vamana Shatakam, Sumati Shatakam, Kumara Shatakam, Kumari Shatakam, Krishna Shatakam. All these are nothing but values told in form of beautiful, simple language poems. Even today, I remember all of them, and time to time they guide me. But my sons and my grandsons, etc., they're studying in their school, they don't, they're just taken out. So values, when are we teaching the most important things of values which guide your life, not your profession? We are only giving them a skill or set of skills to deal with a profession, a job. We are making them job people, but not people who are worth living. They're not human beings. We are making professionals, cut and dry professionals. If you are making a doctor, he just does surgery because he is excellent in surgery. He will reject somebody who doesn't have money. I don't care whether if he dies, he dies. Is that kind of thing which we are teaching. But nobody ever teaches. You are taught how to do a good surgery excellently, but not where to use that surgery, where not to use that surgery, and all that we are not being told. And that's what we call values. without values, anything should not be done. It is better not to do. You die as a fool rather than having a wise, a knowledgeable person with all the evil. You will become an evil genius. There is a word called evil genius. We are making evil geniuses and who are oriented towards efficiency than effectiveness and values. What do you do with efficiency? More time, what do? You die early, is it? You want to die? If God gives you 100 years, by efficiency, you want to live only 50 years. That's what you call efficiency. And you keep on running without knowing where you are running, making money without knowing what you are kind of making money for. This is something. We are discussing now values. I'm very passionate about it. That's why my voice has gone up, and I'm sure Atharva will be happy that I'm now speaking loudly. But it has to be told loudly.
Very true, sir. In fact, there are a couple of things that do come to my mind. You mentioned several shatakas in Telugu. So as a fellow Telugu, I am readily now reminded of this padyam. వినదగు నెవ్వరు చెప్పిన వినంతన వేగపడక వివరింపదగు.
Excellent one. I always remember
కానీ
this.
కళ్ళ నిజము తెలిసిన మనుజుడెప్పో నీతిపరుడు మహిళా సుమతి. So for the sake of our audience, who is the person who is actually can be called as knowledgeable of niti and who practices niti? So the response is that he is somebody who listens to everybody, listens patiently, and without any kind of hurry after listening to it, he analyzes it, perceives what is right, what is wrong. And such a person is the one who you can say or who you can call as someone with niti. So this sense is something which is on the one hand, but on a different note, we also have a traditional shloka, Ajaram arvat pragyo vidyam arthancha chintayet, grihita iva keseshu mrityuna dharmam acharet. There's a sense by which it says, acquire wealth and knowledge as if you are immortal. But when it comes to, say, bringing dharma to practice, do it as if the god of death has held you by your hairs. Now, this sense of dharma is generally understood when you have somebody who follows dharma in front of you. And in education, in terms of kulavrittis or in terms of earlier days, the guru was the exemplar. So, because the guru, the acharya, the word acharya itself means that somebody who has achara, and he is acharavan who practices it. And because of that, he's called acharya. Now, this sense of acharyatva, to a large extent, is difficult to find in current times. Acharyatva is currently missing. The conscious knowledge of the requirement of that could possibly drive people in the future to come. Before I also move forward, I just want to also mention that Guruji Ravindra Sharma did a Bachelor's of Fine Arts from the Jawaharlal Nehru Arts College in Hyderabad, and went on to do a Master's in Fine Arts from Baroda University, MS University, Baroda. And he noticed that both these places had nothing to tell about kulavrittis that he witnessed in his childhood in Adilabad. That's when he decided that maybe this is not what I should be doing. Let me go back and stay with the people from who I learned a lot. And then he noticed that post 1970s, many of the people coming from the families of artisans and artists, they started desiring to move to cities, their own, wealth of, inheritances that they carried from their ancestors. And also, they did not pursue that or learn it. So Guruji Ravindra Sharma tried to catch hold of them and said, you go and learn modern education, all fine, but also learn what your ancestors have learned. And he retaught. In this context, I've noticed that you've also reflected on this. The skilled artisans are leaving their family professions of countless generations and turning to other jobs. How do you see this situation change or alter, where excellence in whichever form is not only recognized, but also rewarded?
Students do go to the villages without knowing much. So they do have this attitude of, what can I do for you? As if you are the God. It's a patronizing attitude. And also, what do you want? Yeah, you should find out what can be done. Yeah, and I tell my students every time when they go to villages, first you try to learn from the villagers, because they have a lot to tell you which you don't know. If you don't know, and if somebody is telling you, that is called knowledge. Yeah. And the other thing is, you learn to respect knowledge. A person who is giving you, that is your guru. A guru is not the only one who is qualified and given a label of guru. Yeah. So a person who knows something and he is teaching you honestly, which will help you to open up or do something, is a guru. A real gurutvam or real teaching is showing by example. Yeah. It's not seeing, or it's not writing, or it's not saying. It is showing, which would, right. You kind of influence somebody. Only then you get the credibility, which is important in any communication. So that happens. So the students going to villages, their spirit of trying to help should be appreciated, but they don't know the knowledge, so they should get knowledgeable. They should go with some humility to learn from this poor, dirty villagers. And then if you know, then what all that you could do is, they know already design. I tell them, don't try to pretend that you can teach them design. You can't teach them design because they know design better than you. But what they need is new markets they don't know. You have some tool now. Communication technology has changed so much all over. They may not know. They may not have the equipment. But first of all, they don't know. But if you can say them how you can reach more people. If I'm, say, suppose I'm a cobbler in Rajasthan. I'm now sitting in Rajasthan. Rajasthan is known for its, footwear work. So suppose nowadays the old kind of mojeries, etc., are not selling. People don't wear that anymore, and the old kind of damaros, etc., are not being made. But new kind of markets like shoulder bags, camera bags, some other kind of things, they're there. They, all that you have to do is, where is the market for it? You don't have to give the design. They will do the design because they have that in their DNA. So what they have done, what I personally, I will tell you, in Kashmir, when the government of India called me, I have gone there after the survey and after talking to all the craftsmen there. I've come to the conclusion they don't need design help, they need marketing help. It's a big difference. Here in Jaipur itself, there is a Indian Institute of Crafts and Design, IICD. So these are the kind of things they need, craftsmen need, not the kind of this thing. You can't force a kalamkari artist. No, I will teach you how the another way of drawing a kalamkari Sri Krishna, because that's not right. There is certain aesthetic tradition he has and he knows it, and there is a reason for it. Yeah. So that should be respected. And all that you know is how to use their tools and their materials, and to meet today's needs. All that is done. They know their materials, they know their tools of using, and how to use them properly. And they also know the vocabulary, aesthetic language. They know. All that you to tell them where the markets exist. I told you earlier the example of Vikram Parchare. All that Vikram Parchare has done is because of his training at NID, he knew what the world exists. Because there in the village, they're not exposed to it. All that you to do is, these are the markets. So he made that Madanapalli village potters, which has become now a famous kind of case study. That's why I mentioned in my book that the potters, instead of making ordinary pots, now people are using aluminum pots and stainless steel pots. So you make garden pottery. And the clients, because garden pottery is very expensive, the clients will be not ordinary people, but these could be the
Very rich people.
mega, very rich hotels, restaurants, they're all there. Even rich people like Ambanis and Adanis and Sarabhais and all that. There is a group, but they're also society, and we shouldn't have anything against that kind of people. But this craftsperson should know their tastes. In Gujarat, patola weaving is done. Only 2 families are surviving. We hope that they will survive more, because the sari would cost you something like 10 to 20 lakhs of rupees. Still they're making, because there are some clients still there. They're buying. And the act of the whole process of the double weaving, we call it in Andhra also, we do it. But that apart, that is expensive, because it is all hand done, and to make one sari, the whole family of 5 or 6 people have to spend 6 months. So that costs so much. No, it has to cost so much. So these are surviving. All that they need is where the markets are. Where are the other Ambanis in the world? Or where are the other Tatas in the world? Yeah.
Maybe if I have to intervene, sure. My question would be, this is not about patronage then. Earlier, we used to have Rajas who used to buy these because it's a matter of their obligation also. I mean, it was a matter of their grandeur, but it was also a matter of obligation. But the sense of patronage is not what we are talking about, but we are also talking about a customer, because there's a market now. So what do you see as the difference between a patron and a customer? As in, say, there's a world of difference between the two.
A world of difference. You asked me that question. I don't prefer patronage. Patronage is kind of patronage, if there is no other way, patronage. But knowing the way the patronage is, the patronage today is only government is our Raja. Our king is now government. And that becomes very political, and the doles are being given. The one stroke, they will make you a beggar. Anytime they will, if you say something against what they will, then they will close that door, and then you will be made to die. But this should be, I always prefer, you give me work. Don't give me kind of a bhiksha. I'm not your bhiksha. I don't want bhiksha. If I want somebody, do you take if I want to give you 1,000 rupees just like that? You won't. I mean, why are you giving me? But if you give me work, I will command, my work will cost this much. I just gave you the patola example. 10 lakhs is, I will pay, because there is so much work involved in it. So we are not making them into a bhikari. But by giving patronage, I don't prefer patronage, because there is nothing like a good patronage. There is always the attached to it, my name should be there. You put my name there. What nonsense is this? Because you have taken, if you're giving that patronage for free, first you are ruining my self-respect, self-dignity, which is very important for me. Ganesh Devi used to say, my friend who is a linguist, used to say, the poor have nothing else to lose but their self-dignity. They don't have anything. They don't have cars, and they don't have aeroplanes, and they don't have money balance and all that. But all that they have is self-dignity. At least that we should save them. I should say that when you mention them work, not patronage, not doles. Is certainly not, because that is the wrong thing. Not even awards. I beg to differ. The awards, etc., only create making with this comparison and all that. If I'm in a Padmashali, earlier I gave in a Padmashali example. Now I will continue with that. Suppose I'm a Padmashali person in Ponduru, known for its Padmashalis.
Right.
And one of us is picked up, and he was taken to Delhi and given a gold medal and some money and all that. What happened is, you have heard, if there are 40 families, one family benefits, 39 families are wounded. We don't realize that, because they're all starving.
Right.
Why only this fellow gets it? Maybe he has got merit. I'm not doubting the merit. But this is not right kind of thing. You give them work. Why not government do all the government wants, they can do it. The Prime Minister's bungalow or Rashtrapati's bungalow has to be made only with khadi, only with Ponduru silk, All the railway compartments would be decorated only with khadi or something. You see, if we want, we can do it. But basically, we are not, right now, we are not in a mood to wanting it.
I mean, given that you mentioned this, I am reminded of this essay, Sri Malampalli Somasekhar Sarma Garu, was one of the legendary people who have written on past, specifically of Telugu regions. He, in one of his essays, specifically on the artisans and how their learning used to happen in the old, so Vritti Vidya, he mentions about the artisan guilds, which were actually, say, very professionally run, and they were as well, and he mentions that they were like banks. So if suppose, say, a person who wants to honor, you mentioned award. So what was the kind of, say, award that a Raja used to give to a particular, say, person who is exceptionally good? So they used to actually give a lot of wealth to this artisanal guild, which was the one which was the bank for all these artisans. And it is through that guild that the work was actually, say, furthered. So, I mean, it will probably take a little more time to explain the details, but I felt that, say, this approach that the guild, which is acting like a bank for the artisans, and the gift or the kind of award is actually directed towards the entire community. And because the vritti is what is being, say, given a pride of place, that sense is something that we can indeed design such kind of models appropriate for our times, is a thought that does come to me.
Yeah, it's possible. You see, the guilds earlier are now replaced by associations, Furniture Designers Association, Architects Association. We have got many associations like the Designers Association, all that. And they can have a common, it's not just association to protect their rights and fighting with the, the society or the clients, but it can be expanded a little more. See, in Ahmedabad, I was very closely associated with a great lady, Sasi Award winner, called Ilaben Bhatt, who passed away only a few months ago. She started with,
right.
She's a Gandhian to the core. She's a simple lady.
Right.
She suddenly saw this rag picker woman, mainly women. They're going and picking up rags, and whatever is little worthwhile, they will take it to a fellow who is a Radhi fellow and sell it to them. They make very, very little. And people used to exploit. No, this is useless. But if you give it for 1 rupee, I will take it, but not 10 rupees, I won't give. And all that, this exploitation going on. All that she did is, what Ilaben said is, let us all get together and sorted unitedly if we can fight this exploitation. And after, she didn't stop there, as Vikram Parchare also has done. She said, now if you start earning, she started Self-Employed Women's Association, which is still running very well in Ahmedabad by her son. She said, this is not enough to have a little more money. You give it to your husband and he will drink and then beat you up only. So what to do? Where to put this money? Your earned money. So you put it in a bank because you need it when your daughter comes to marriages. You need it for some things like that, which are very, important in life. So they formed a bank also for them, a private bank. That's what. So all that has to be thought about it and do it. But earlier, you see, my only problem with patronage, anybody, is you have to depend on the sweet will of another person. You have good Rajas like Krishnadeva, it worked. But you have bad Rajas. We keep telling about Aurangzeb and all others, and there are many others also. So let me not quote it, but it's a democratic world. And why are we giving this in the hands of few people? Even democracy, if it is, as long as it is a majority world, it doesn't work. So why are we taking away my self-dignity? Give me work and pay me more. I keep telling even my wife in my personal dealings, if she argues with the hand-cart vegetable seller, I will tell, Padmini, please let him have, you are earning more than him. That is the only thing you should remember. Let him have more. So that kind of, I'm not thinking I'm patronizing, but if you're charging a little more, give now. Because God has given you more, and this more had not fallen from sky. It has fallen from this society which is full of these people. These people only gave you. I am getting my money not from my trustee or my employee. I am getting my money from the students' fees. I must remember that. I keep telling my colleagues, your money is not coming from the top man. If I am working for Tata, Tata is not paying me. I am working for this society. Society is paying me. Ultimately, my wealth is created by the society. A part of it is given to me. So my ultimate responsibility is to the society. We keep forgetting.
From the kind of stories and the kind of studies that I have had, I noticed that at least in the earlier times, when you had rajas who knew what it meant to be, to do palana, praja palana, they had a sense that if at all the praja is doing their respective dharma, then you need to respect them, and there's no way in which the self-dignity can be lowered. So much so that if a person is clear that he has done his dharma, even if the king comes by that way, he need not actually look at that way also, because he has done this job and he is doing his job. So this sense of, say, self-dignity, where my focus is on my dharma, and I do not have anything else to offer to, or say, I do not need to be subservient to somebody else who is doing his dharma, is a certain sense that comes when there is a common sense of understanding that dharma is what matters. And that sense of this education and the sense of bringing in dharma in the context of this, when there is a common understanding that each one has their respective dharma, and when that is fulfilled, they are not answerable to anybody else. What they are answerable to is dharma. This common understanding was prevalent in our society of yore, at least in terms of the kind of narratives that we have in earlier. So in current times, in some sense, that sense of dharma itself, that there is something which is my dharma, my obligation, that sense, even in terms of education also, it is only, say, partially conveyed, if not conveyed at all. Your thoughts on the same?
Unfortunately, this dharma which was believed earlier is eroding, and less we can blame Kali Yuga for it, but it is not there. We keep using the word I'm using. We keep using Lord Rama's name, who is a king, who is a good king, good example of us. How many of us know what way he has observed that dharma? Who would eat the jhuta of a Dalit? That really Shabari is a Dalit person, and she has eaten the fruit and given him, and he happily ate it. Who would ask? He asked when he fell his enemy, Ravana, who will ask his brother Lakshmana? Lakshmana, go and learn from me. He's a Pandit there, sitting there. You see, this is dharma. He knows Raj Dharma to the core. Today, we only use his name for our own purposes. Unfortunately, we are using God for our own selfish purposes, commercial purposes, political purposes, but we are not following the dharma which he followed. So this is not happening. It's not happening, but this is I say still, I stuck to education all my life, although it is not the paying. If I have practiced my profession, I would have earned much more, but that's not my goal. My goal is to do some meaning in life. That should be everybody's goal. But education is actually at the root of all our illnesses. We are not caring for it at all. We are blaming Macaulay. How many years we blame Macaulay? After 75 years, we still blaming Macaulay. The ghost. It is a ghost. It is a shame to blame somebody like that after 75 years. You don't have your own this thing. You don't have enough time to develop. It is a one generation past. No, so I get very upset when you blame somebody else for your own fault. It is our fault because I know the importance is political. We don't want people to be educated. We want them to be bhikshuks. So we can keep giving them, make them beggars. So you can keep on giving them some doles so that they can vote for you. But we don't want them to really educated because any educated man will question. Education is questioning. The art of questioning is education. We don't want them because that will then, upset your own power. Education is power. Education is empowering. We know that. So we don't, even if we teach them how to sign your name, which is nothing. My mother never knew how to sign her name, but she is a lot wiser because she brought 3 children, being a young widow at 25, all her life. And she lived up to 93 years. And I keep on advising me every time. And she's some magnanimity. When I married a Gujarati girl who doesn't know my language, who doesn't eat what I eat, and she doesn't know a word of Telugu, nothing. And she's from Vaishya community and all that. My mother, who is a traditional widow, when I went and told her, she see the way her wisdom. She said, "Beta, my son, if you have chosen it, you must have chosen a good person only. I would heartily welcome." This is what she said. That kind of height of wisdom, who will have? We don't have many mothers like that. We are only getting by petty things like, your caste, my caste, and then we keep fighting for it. In our village also, we have this caste system. We used to have one Dalit person, untouchable, come to our house and all the cow shit, and we used to have cows and buffaloes and all that. She used to clean them and all that. And she goes there. One day I called her, "Hey." My mother called me and gave me a big slap. "Why are you calling her "Hey"? Because she is doing your, cleaning your shit and he's making you clean. You're making your courtyard clean. So never do that. But you only told me not to touch her because we have to respect certain, that is what is called dharma. Certain rules of the caste, without any argument. But it doesn't mean that you should disrespect her. I learned that. Whenever I go to cinema hall and I used to, joke with my mother, today I don't know who is sitting next to me on the floor. You have to sit almost, rub shoulders with some other person whom you know his caste. I used to joke with my mother. I don't know whom I have touched. Maybe he's untouchable. So he also used to smile back and you hold on. Don't enter into the house. She will bring some turmeric water, pasvanil, and she will sprinkle on my head. Now you can come. So she's got a solution. We don't have to fight and, kill the other person because he belongs to another caste. Today we made into the hatred so much. Earlier, that's what we have, a whole separate Vada for the Malavi. We know, but we respected them because they know about the herbals more than they are our Vaidyas. Because they know about the herbs, because they go to the nearby hills and forests and they know the tattvam of every plant and herb. So we respect, if somebody is ill, the untouchable will come and touch him to cure him, and that is allowed. All that you have to do is, bring some more turmeric water and sprinkle on them. So that's it. That worked extremely well. What is the great thing about, why are we fighting about it? I don't even understand many times.
When you mention this, I'm actually reminded of this book, India from Curzon to Nehru by Durgadas, where he actually refers to, say, a village in India in 1900, where he says everybody belonging to every caste, every jati, they had their space in the village. And sometimes they had quarrels, they had some kind of tiffs, but they also knew how to resolve it. He says that his grandmother used to say that the rule of Queen Victoria, because that's the 1900 Curzon's rule was that. So she used to say that this is Queen Malka's Ramarajya. So there was this sense of, looking at how the dynamics of the village worked. But in a sense, say, when we try to bring in our modern notions into what the customs and the kind of customary understanding that villagers have, that certainly is a thing which distorts many things. But I suppose, say, it requires a lot more effort to understand our own selves and our presence in the kind of inheritances that we carry. But that, I think, say, would take us into a completely different direction, which probably requires a lot more, effort to try and ease out to understand where we are. We already had a lot of discussions right now, so I'd like to conclude this discussion. In fact, thank you for your time for all this while. At your age, you spend so much time. Thank you very much. To put across a statement I heard from Dharampalji, popularly thought of as a Gandhian historian, but one of the finest thinkers of our times, whose centenary celebrations took place last year. He was born in 1922 Common Era. When I asked him, what according to you is the need of the hour? As in, what do you see as the problem of current day India? So I happened to meet him in 2005 in Sevagram Ashram, Vardha, where this conversation happened. And he responded, the problem with current day India is that India is not using its own intelligence and talent and local resources to have a good living in India. It has given that up. But it is still being followed by people who have no resources, nothing, who have muscle power and all that on the basis of muscle power and some memory and some intelligence, and they keep on going. And the condition becomes worse and worse. But it should become reverse. So he went on to point out, in fact, he was very critical of people who are earning a lot of huge paychecks and have no clue about, say, what the society is around and what is the kind of governmental push that actually gives them high paychecks. So all this was something that he was critical about. But more importantly, he raised the point about good living in India. So my question to you, sir, is what do you see is the way to reclaim our sense of the good living in India? And how would you think that the entire question of design and the search for Indian traditions of design is at the core of this exercise?
I can't agree more with the Dharampalji. He is absolutely right. But as far as the way is, it's not easy. But if you ask me, I would say, again, the whole thing should start with education, good education. For good living, you need good education. And education doesn't mean it happens only in the school. Today, a lot of education is happening on the internet. We are not conscious of it. But there is more education happening through internet than at the college where you spend 6 hours. Children are spending maybe 12 hours a day or more on internet. They're suffering already at young age. Of the teenagers, many of them I'm teaching, they're all suffering from the mental illnesses. Mental illness is rampant. We are not conscious of it, but we should be conscious of it. Right now, they go into the bathroom, cry, and come out after wiping the tears. Even parents don't know. But I know because I'm a teacher and I can know them. I can know their heart better than their parents because they spend more time with me than their parents. So first of all, if any society has to change, it has to, earlier I said it, I'm telling it again very emphatically, it has to start with education. But right kind of education, not the education to fight. Earlier it has happened, so today it should not happen and all that. That's a stupid kind of education. But in the true sense of Aurobindo and Mother, of knowing the past, like Dharampalji also said, knowing the past in order to guide your present and not to spoil your present. And money, the value of money is needed, but money doesn't make you happy. And the meaning actually is the main thing we are looking for, not the money. You ask many people who are the wealthiest people in the world, are they happy? They might say they're not happy. Yeah. So this is one thing is it should start with education, but not any education, but an education in a true sense, an education which happens at home, at the internet, all the social media, at the media, and at the school, all of them together. It's education is now, the teachers are leaving the parents are leaving their responsibility to the teachers are leaving their responsibility to the social media. So social media is, how good it is. Anybody who says something which is exciting, which is, about the blue whale, where they've convinced the whole generation to kill themselves. Suicide is the best thing. And many people believed and committed suicides also. So there is something which you have to see education in the largest sense. Education is not limited only to four rooms of the classroom. Even in classroom, where we have a control, even on social media also we have control. Politicians are already using social media for their own benefit. So why can't we use it for the social benefit? We're not doing it yet. We're not using our money and our resources and our wisdom. This country has a lot of wisdom. But who is listening to Dhanpalji? Who is listening to Guruji? Who is listening to Balaram? So this is where we have to draw a line. Atharva Forum is doing this. I don't know how many people are listening to it. How many people, even if those people who listen, how many of them really kind of activate themselves towards that. So this is, one is, everything should start with education, the right kind of education, which gives values in education. It should be value-based education. We only mouthpiece value-based education, value-based education. We don't know ourselves what is that value. We want to prevent. I mentioned about Neet Shatkas. Why Neet Shatkas have suddenly gone? Sumati Shatkam, Kumari Satkam, Narasimha Satkam, Krishna Satkam. They all have gone out. Now no school. I have a lot of these Shatkas with me. I'm waiting for where should I burn them all, because no school wants them. They think it is old-fashioned. Values will never die. There's something called, for classic means permanent. Beethoven music will never die. It will always be there. Tyagaraja's music will never die. It will always be there. Achandra Tararkam. So this we are not putting. We're putting emphasis on somewhere else, earning money, having luxury, and you think you will be happy. You will not happy. I told you, the whole generation, my class, all these 60 people or so who are in my class, they're all unhappy because they're going through this mental tension that young age when they're bubbling with happiness. They should be. They have no responsibility. They have no pressure of be able to work and satisfy his boss and all that. They are not there. I said, why are you so grumpy today? He said, sir, I'm feeling like crying. This is it. This is created. Who is responsible for that? We are responsible. We, you and me. And we are not taking that responsibility. So this is it. This is a big question. My answer also is big. I'm putting this responsibility on the whole society. It's not an individual. Individual can't do it. People have tried. There are always people, but these voices have to reach many, many people through proper channels. Which media will publish? Tell me. I don't know how far Atharva Forum will reach, but I don't know who will, publish what I'm talking, or who will kind of broadcast what I'm saying. How far Dhanpalji will reach? How far Guruji will reach? So they should be brought to the very, 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 largest forum in a very effective way. We're not doing it. No? Everybody asks you how many marks you got. But what are the marks worth? If we don't have the values intact. I told you my mother's example. She can't sign her name. She is illiterate in that sense. But
must be very educated.
But in my opinion, she's very highly educated.
Professor Balaram, thank you for your time and your wonderful thoughts. In fact, there are a lot to say. I mean, if quibble were the kind of thing to be done, I have several problems with many statements that you made. But that's not an issue. But the overall thrust that you are given in terms of what requires to be done, that I believe is something that requires to be seriously, reflected on. Since we began with, the various quotes from the Foreword of India report, I'd like to reiterate Samatvam Yoga Uchyate and this has been a kind of a thing that I tried to pick from another conversation of mine with Professor D. Venkatrao on humanities education in India path forward. I'd like to end by saying that there's a great degree of reflection that one can do when we take these two, instructions from Lord Krishna. Sve sve karmanyabhirataha samsiddhim labhate naraha. Swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. This sense of each person by doing their respective karma is something that they attain what is what they can indeed obtain. That sense to be reclaimed calls for a lot of effort as a collective, and I do hope that these thoughts will generate some kind of a churn with which, say, we can see some more thought going into design, as well as, say, many other aspects that follow from that. Thank you very much. Namaste.
My pleasure. My pleasure.